Hi, second grade. Thank you for coming in today for our weekly PLC.
Thank you.
Here's the agenda that was emailed to you last week, and we'll just go ahead and get started. So, Ms. Morales, if you want to read the team norms.
Okay, so be on time and end on time. Be prepared with items needed. Keep students' best interest first, and be respectful and use words to be constructive.
Wonderful. And then we'll start off with team celebrations.
Well, as you guys know, I have a little one. We had our baby shower, and I had my family drive up from Dallas, and one of my friends flew in.
As a surprise.
Yeah, my husband had planned it.
Oh,
Yeah, so I didn't know it all.
where did she fly?
She came from Colorado.
Oh wow, that's awesome.
Yeah.
That's cute. I guess for celebrations, like we just finished our culture projects, and the kids were really excited, and the projects came out really cute.
Yeah, and learning from their own culture, from their parents.
Yeah.
It's really neat.
I think when they got to take home that interview, and get to interview their parents, or whoever, grandparents, they really liked that and they were able to learn a lot from that. I guess also, since we're talking about it, I wanted to discuss also maybe next year. I know some parents, we invited parents to the wax museum one at the beginning of the year, and I had some parents asking if they could come to this one, which I mean, I guess we can always just talk about for next year if that might be an option. Maybe not doing the wax museum because maybe that's too soon. Yeah, and then they're more ready for the culture museum.
Yeah, they could, because then the parents might want to, because they're teaching their child more about their culture, might want to be a little more participatory in coming and dressing and maybe bringing food items or craft items and just a special memory with their child.
Yeah, or maybe move it. I know one year we said we could move around the third and first, since the first planner and the third planner, because the first one has a lot to do with nonfiction, and it's kind of early in the year to bring that in. Versus
historical
culture,
figures.
it would have the fictional stories, fairy tales around the world, and all that stuff. So it would be best, and it could do the I know it's not who we are, but we could incorporate that because we're learning about them as well at the beginning of the year. So moving it around, switching around.
So that might be something we can do
For next year?
For next year.
It's a good idea.
Just wanted that to be on.
Will we still hold it in the hall?
I
Or
think
would
so.
it be in classrooms if they're bringing
For culture?
food?
Oh, okay. You know what? That's a good question.
We used to do all three, but it
Oh,
was a lot because they came in for the student-led conferences. So they had already seen everything. So that's kind of why we shortened it to just two, so that they'd have something to show when it was student-led conference time.
and it was in the hallway.
Oh, yeah. So we would do half. So half of it was in the room and half were out in the hall. And then if there were several students with the same culture, they'd be in the same area.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
What about food and stuff? How did they, or was that not allowed? Or
This was pre-COVID, so we had to have a list of ingredients really for allergies. So they were listed, but other students were invited to. So I think that's why I had to do that. But so if it were third grade coming down and they were trying different foods, then they could look at the allergy or the ingredients and decide.
maybe not.
No,
Yeah, I would stick to families.
Yeah,
Right.
families and the team.
Just such a
Yeah, and then having the adults try it, it's just less to worry about, because as far as food allergies, because they're kids, they're gonna all want to try everything anyway.
Yeah, next Wednesday when we have Ivy planning, we can put that in Miss Kushmal's ear and work on that for next year.
Yeah.
That's really great. Yeah. Yeah. Miss Morales, any celebrations?
Oh, so we had the meteorologist come in, and the kids were really good. They were so well behaved. He even complimented them on their behavior. So I was really proud of them.
They were
And
super
they had
excited.
good
One of my girls we wrote letters, and she goes, "P.S. I saw you on TV."
Real world
They were really ones that did get selected, like, whoa, I'm so glad.
Yeah, they have their
My
little note
question
cards
back.
because they
Oh,
prepared their own
that's
questions.
Oh, that's really great.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, we'll start with our first action item on the agenda, which is our data dig. Just reflecting on our middle of the year MAP scores. So we took the MAP assessment a couple weeks ago. Now that makeups are finished, we have our results. So just as you've looked over the different data points of like your students, the growth, or some that maybe didn't grow as much as you anticipated, just our first question, what are some trends or that you noticed in your growth? And then like, were there any specific skills that you feel like maybe your students like could have like done maybe better on, or like, oh, this is something that I've taught, but I need to go back and reteach it. So any notice things that you saw in your data?
So I noticed there was like a lot of growth in math, which was surprising because there were a lot of TEKs that we hadn't hit that were on the test. So, but they still showed more growth in math versus reading, I guess. So that was a plus. And the ones that they did miss or that kind of set them back were ones that we hadn't hit yet. So I think like at the end of the year, there will probably be even more growth. And then with reading, there was growth, but not as much. But I also think that has to do with like our stamina. So like I noticed that like the passages were really long for some students, and I think they just haven't built that stamina. It's just middle of the year, and they haven't built that stamina yet. So, but that's kind of what I noticed as far as that. And then with science, of course, like that's just an area of growth overall.
Yeah.
So it's just something that we need to maybe think about.
Yeah, I will have to say, like, you know, with the math growth, I think, like, you know, with these tests, it usually is like a lot of like word problems that have to do with like addition, subtraction, multiplication, division. So, like, we've really hit it hard on the addition and subtraction this year. So I feel like that, like, also helped with the math scores. But I do agree with, like, we haven't hit, like, time, graph. Like, there were some graphs, and I was like, oh, like,
there was a lot of graphs.
like, graphs and money.
Multiplication and division, like 2-digit and 1-digit.
Yeah, I saw
Like,
multiplication on there.
Yeah. And so I do feel like we'll see a lot more growth at the end of the year when we have hit those other things.
Right.
And then for reading, I know this is really, really random, but like I felt like for the passages, they were long, but also like the print was really small.
It was. I saw a lot of the kids trying to zoom in.
Yeah, so a lot of the kids were trying to zoom in, but then I also noticed a lot of kids who didn't, you know, so they were all like, so I felt like, okay, maybe for the next one, I think for my class at least, I'm going to be sure to show them like, okay, again, like this is how you zoom in and this is how you zoom out. Like
I've never taught them that, and I think they've done it just naturally with like other things.
with like iPads and stuff.
They know,
But I think we do need to tell them because there are some students that didn't.
Because I observed them like zooming, but then zooming in too much. So then they would like the way they would like scroll and then try to scroll back to the beginning, and then the way it moves, and then it became more of like play.
Yeah.
So I think definitely like teaching them the appropriate way to zoom to make it larger.
Yeah. I know that's so random, but like I feel like it makes a difference. You know?
Yeah, even with me. I mean, if I can't see it, otherwise I lose interest. Like it's like I'm spending more time trying to like figure out what it says.
Another thing that I also noticed on the reading test was that like this is their first time taking the standardized test, so like some of them would go to the next question and they raise their hand. They're like, but this is like the same passage. Like I feel like the students didn't know that like there's a set of questions that go with the same passage. They didn't know that. They were waiting for like a different passage or something. So these are things I didn't think about. But now I'm like, okay.
And I also noticed with the ones that I was just, that I don't know which group, but there was one that they wouldn't let them go to the next question because you had to select multiple choices.
Oh, so having more than one answer.
Yeah, they have that now.
I didn't know. I was like,
I did know.
I did, but if they were reading the directions, which most don't.
Which would, yeah.
Mhm.
So I was just like, well, there's probably, I mean, because I had to kind of look at it because I was like, I don't know why it's not moving because I do see the
Yeah.
selected. But then I read it because they were zoomed in.
Mhm.
But then I was like, oh, the directions say that there was probably more than one.
I do appreciate that they do like tell you how many there are, like because
yeah.
they're like, okay, pick out the 2 questions or 2 answers that could be,
Oh, okay.
like,
I didn't know
yeah.
they were
so,
that many. Like, I didn't know
or
that.
pick out the 3 answers. I think.
Oh, I didn't know it was that specific.
Yeah.
I feel like it was specific because I was able to say it says pick 2. It
Oh,
says pick 2
Oh,
for that.
okay.
So
Okay.
I also noticed there were a lot of rapid guessing
okay,
for
yeah.
reading rather than math. It was a lot of more rapid guessing.
Yeah.
I feel like that's just stamina, like
Right.
them getting tired and wanting to.
Also the
like,
second day.
Right.
Yeah.
And then the science test on the 3rd day was like,
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah.
More reading.
Mm-hmm.
It was
More reading.
Yeah.
Or like STAR, having like a day, like a full day in between each
Yeah.
test day.
Especially for second.
I don't know if they'd let us because it's I think it's like district, but
Yeah, because they're trying to get it done before the end of the week.
Yeah.
And it was just such a tough week too because we had a weather day.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, they came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So they moved
Yeah.
it.
Yeah. So it was already kind of chaotic.
And then the teacher switch.
That was new
Yeah.
for them.
Plays
That was-
that's
that
new.
was
That's
new.
new for them.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole thing, like covering the walls, teacher
yeah.
switch, like just
Yeah.
the standardizing it all was new to them.
Yeah.
Because the first time we didn't do that.
Yeah. And I had like there were like a lot of students who asked like, why is my teacher leaving? Why do they have to go? Why am I getting a new teacher? So it was
Yeah.
very like new.
Different
So
and new.
so like you shared, like maybe at the end of the year when we take it again in May, maybe like those unknowns won't be an unknown,
Yeah.
and like you'll see.
like you know how they do mock STAR? I wonder if we could do like a mock like map type test, something short where we do like rotate for like a test or something, you know, and like kind of
Yeah.
talk to them about like whatever they're doing, maybe give them some tips right then and there, like coaching on the spot. It's like if there's something that we notice that they're doing that we can kind of like that will help them on the actual test.
I wonder if like you could, like, you know how like for Renaissance we were always able to just like do another Renaissance and it would just like collect the data as like another data point, but not as a part of BOY, MOY, EOY, you know? Like, can you do that with this?
Yeah, or like the on-track test, right? Like we could, because that's online. Like it could be online. I know we print them out, but like it could be online, and they could take that just as practice. It doesn't have to be for a grade, but like showing them, even with us talking, like everyone should be on one. Just make sure you scroll. Let's practice zoom in.
Right.
Let's practice go back and look for the answer on this question. I don't know if they're all the same questions at the same time, but
I know Miss Garvin, she has shared with parents like the parent resources for math, and I think there's like mock questions that she's referred to the parents because they're like, I want to see, like parents want to see the questions that are being asked so that they can help like their child, like what kind of questioning is being asked. So I'm sure we could probably use that same resource to try, maybe like, you know, build our own mock. And then incorporating those like multiple answer questions, like using that like in like CFAs or other like assessments, maybe like adding an additional question to like assessments that are already made, so that they're used to those types of questions. So I heard a lot about stamina, and then so just brainstorming now. So what are some activities like as a grade level could be incorporated into your class to help, you know, address those needs of like stamina or the questions? Like what are some activities that you could start doing?
Well, I know like at first we kind of want them to feel like they're being supported, so maybe something that they can do in buddy pairs at first, and then like eventually like buddy to independent, but like one where they're like being supported with the passage together and finding that information together and talking it out, and then maybe like going if we want to add like the same day or another day, but have them buddy, and then like the next step is a different passage, but they're by themselves, and then kind of go over it, just to kind of build that stamina of like, we did one passage and it was buddy, now we're doing two passages, buddy and independent, and then maybe the third time like doing two passages, short paragraphs, and then like but it's independent.
Okay, that's good.
I don't know, just an idea. I don't know if that would work or what,
but reading multiple passages in the same sitting,
just to kind of practice going back and looking for answers, and maybe test taking strategies too, like stopping and taking little breaks, like mental breaks, or like exercise breaks at your seat kind of thing. Because it is a lot. Like knowing to pause the test, like take a sip of water or stand up for a minute stretch, or
letting them know that's okay.
That's okay. You don't have to sit the whole time, because a lot of them got really tired and frustrated because it kept going, and I was like, when is this going to end? And it kept
40 questions.
Yes, and it was 40, and I didn't know when it would end, because
like they would
for some it would be 40, and then it was 41. So I don't know that. It's just an idea.
That would be good.
Are there any skills that you feel like you need to like reteach or touch on, like in math? Like, is there anything that you felt like, oh, I thought they would do better in, the place value and like the computation, but they didn't? Like, is there anything like you felt like you want to reteach, like maybe in small group?
Not so much reteach, because I think like we've been on this unit for quite some time, so I feel like the skills that we've hit, they really get it. I think like just for those more advanced kids, like for differentiation, for small groups and intervention, like maybe pull them and work on skills that maybe are on their plan that aren't quite ones that we would get to. Like we would get to multiplication, but maybe they are ready for that double digit and times of one digit, and just to show them how to do. I mean, because they're really excited to do it. I know that like one kid was already doing it today, but it wasn't because I went over it. I guess he did it at home or something. But he had me check it, and I'm like, I've got to stack my numbers. But so like for those that are ready and it's on their plan, maybe to like pull a small group that to work on that.
Yeah, the advanced. Yeah, because those kids always seem to get missed. We always want to hone in on like our most like at-risk students, but we have to think about how can we advance like our GT students and things. So you maybe utilizing like more of like that breakfast club that Mr. McClish talked about, like utilizing that for those.
That's true.
Like the higher ones.
And I know you mentioned Zern, like moving them ahead on Zern so that they're learning those. Zern. I know a lot of mine are ahead.
Mine are too. I think they've been doing it at home because of the challenge. But because that's how I knew multiplication was coming up, because they're like, they were like, is this multiplication when you add the same number over and over again? I'm like, yes. So
getting that connection already.
I was like, how do you know that? Like, I'm already on module 6. I'm like, oh, I'd forgotten they could advance.
Like some of like on IXL, they'll have like the skills of like equal groups, and like that's kind of stuff like they can do. Like you just count how many groups there are, know how many's in each group, and that's the IXL. The whole IXL skill is that. So, but they don't realize that that's kind of multiplication. So.
That's great. So we'll move on to running records. So as a second grade team, you guys have been working on running records for the middle of the year as well, collecting that data. So what are some things that you guys are noticing, with your students? Like, are they, showing like the growth in their reading levels? How are they doing with comprehension questions? We can have that discussion.
I see growth in a lot of my students, which is really good. I'm excited about, and they are too when I tell them that they've gone up a level or they skipped 2 letters. I am noticing with my higher kids, they can read a higher level, but those comprehension questions, more like the evaluation and like inferring, like they're going off on a little tangent. I don't think they're understanding, and especially when I let them go back into the book, they're still not on the right page or they're not finding the correct information.
Yeah.
So I'm noticing that with my higher kids.
I noticed that too. And it's kind of making me be a little bit reflective, like how like I need to try to like grow these kids because I do see like a lot of growth in like the lower level kids. But
those are who we're working with
yeah,
most.
those are the ones that we're working with the most. So it is making me be more reflective on that.
Yeah, I feel the same because like I felt like they're at a higher level, like they can read all the words.
Yeah.
They're not comprehending, and so when I give certain questions like that, I try to reword it to see if that would help. Because maybe it's just the wording of the question to see if that helps. And sometimes it does. Sometimes it's still like you just get a random answer, but but it's also helped me rearrange my groups. So like they may be on the same L level, but maybe this group of L's need comprehension, but the other group, they're really good at comprehension. Maybe it's like more vocabulary. So for those higher ones, like grouping them into even smaller groups.
Right. Based on skill. Than just reading level. Yeah. So you could even have like a student that's on a J and a student on an M. Two very different levels, but still working on like a comprehension, like strategy. And that way, like the students are also getting those mixed ability groups, as well. Yeah, no, that's really great. And so, are there any students that you're noticing right now during doing the running records that you feel like need to be added to like the RTI or need like extra intervention? If there are students, I would say email Miss Hauser and Miss Guzman, the counselor, just to let them know, like, hey, these are some things that I notice doing running records. So, so as you continue to do your running records, if there are any students that you feel the need, that RTI, that extra intervention, just send them an email and then they'll be on their radar. Yeah. And so Eureka, so math, our new math curriculum, you guys just took a mid-module assessment. Here's a copy of that. Were there any things as you've been grading those mid-modules, any misconceptions that you guys have noticed with the students that they've missed, or any glows and grows?
I feel like they did a really good job for the most part. Some of them got tricked because it would be like all addition and then the last one is subtraction. But like when I sent them back to go redo it, like they were fine with it. The only one that I feel like I probably could reteach is going to be this section right here, where it's like the balancing of equations. And I feel like in Eureka, like they don't really dive deep into this. They didn't do it. So like, yeah, I don't feel like they did this very well in the book or like in the Learn book. And it's not that they can't get it. Now I know I need to like go back to this balancing thing.
I've seen this. They just usually put it in a word problem. So it'll be like Gemma was saying that 466 plus 244 is equal to is she correct? Or so they put it in word problems. They don't usually put it in true or false.
And that
or even like just like this.
Not side by side. No, they don't.
I mean, for my review, I did see the test beforehand, and I kind of reviewed that. And so what I did is like I'd have them do like one because of course with the buddy, and so one buddy would be this side and the other buddy would be that side, and then they would just solve and then see if their answer was the same, and then check each other's math too. So like they'd exchange and also check each other's math because somebody might have missed a step. And then decide if it was like true or false from there. But
that's good.
That's good. I like that.
That's good, like higher order thinking too, to get them to problem solve with each other and then explain like their thinking.
And check it.
Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah. And then it'll be interesting too if then they can take something like this and then turn it into a word problem since they have seen it that way. Try to do it that way.
Correct.
Yeah.
they did pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of like Jessica said, we've been honing on addition and subtraction, so they kind of got it down. But this part was a little tricky for them.
Yeah.
Well, that's good. That's good. And so now that the mid-module assessment is finished, prior to the meeting, it was asked for you to look at the next 3 lessons, lessons 16, 17, and 18, and just internalize those lessons. What are some misconceptions that you see could happen? Anything that might get previewed coming up for the next 3 Eureka lessons. So, Ms. Chan, you have lesson 16. So we'll just start with you, and then we'll just keep going from 16, 17, and then 18.
Yes. So 16 is our next upcoming lesson. There is a sprint. Up to you. I know some of you use it for morning work, which I think is a really good idea. I've been starting to do that too. Is using it for the morning work. And then for fluency, they have the coin drop. And I think it would be good because it is coming up more in Module 7, and they'll see it coming up soon, that they'll get kind of familiar with money. So it's kind of asking them, you're telling them I have a penny, and a penny is worth 1, and you'll drop it, and they'll have to listen to how many you drop, and they'll count it that way. So if you drop 16 pennies, then the amount is 16. And then you'll say, now I'm dropping dimes, so then they have to count by tens when you drop them. So
is
that's
it from that number, like from the 16, let's say, and then you drop?
Oh no, you would start over.
Okay.
But that's a really good idea to have
So
them
like
skip
skip
counting.
count.
That would be a really good idea to have them skip
10
counting.
more.
10 more.
16.
Yeah.
That would be really good.
Yeah.
Application problem is it's 2-step, so they're having them subtract and add. A lot of reading for them to do, and kind of looking at those clue words and really listening about when to add and when to subtract. The actual concept they will be focusing on, I know we had already touched on this, was subtracting across zeros, but now they're focusing on the 0 being in the tens place.
Yeah.
So that will be different for them. Misconceptions, probably that hundreds place, because they didn't have to borrow from the 100. So focusing there and looking there, especially when we do it in the problem set, kind of focusing on doing those first 2 problems together.
I'm
18.
Okay, so lesson 17 is very similar to lesson 16. So if we can actually use this lesson to reteach in a small group if your students are struggling with the subtracting with the 0 in the middle. And then those of the students who mastered the subtraction with the zeros in the middle, then they can just probably go straight to the problem set. But it's pretty similar to lesson 16.
Okay, and then mine is apply and explain an alternate method for subtracting from multiples of 100 and from numbers with 0 in the tens place. So they're just giving you multiple strategies for that subtraction across zeros, but then having them choose their favorite one at the end and stick to that one. But they do practice on the concept development. And for the fluency, it is the get 10 out and subtract and then kind of add them back in, which I thought was a little confusing. It could be a little confusing for some students. So like with the 12 minus 4, they would say it's 10 minus 4, subtract, and then add the 2 back for the answer. So it's going to be a little tricky for them. But there's just kind of getting them used to a different strategy. But of course, they could use any of the other strategies that they're used to. And for the application problem, it is a 2-part word problem. So just kind of having them break apart each section at a time. So Eureka kind of does that already. It has them like with letter A is their step 1 and B is their step 2. So I think that should be kind of fairly easy because they've had a lot of practice with those types of questions. And then the concept development was what I was saying. Like they have the strip model or diagram with the across zeros, they take away one from each side and subtract just to kind of make the number a little easier to subtract. And then for the second model, it would be with a number bond. And so they have them do the same, but with a different number across zeros. And so just kind of knowing that you could count on. So it was saying that you could count up, start at 278 and count up to 400 so that they can kind of see it's all part of a fact family. And then the other model would be subtracting using the arrow way. So they keep one number and then count backwards for like counting back hundreds and then tens and then ones, or in this case they did the tens. I'm sorry, the ones, then the tens, then the hundreds for subtraction. So, and then our basic vertical form with standard algorithm, and they could use the chip model, but I like to use the base 10. Yeah. So having them see that. And so then after they do all of those, showing them four different problems with 4 different strategies they can choose for independent.
Mine kind of opt out for the vertical.
For the vertical, they don't like that one.
They would rather do the vertical than anything else.
They
want to skip. They want to skip around everything else.
Mine do too. Because I think it's so organized and structured. Like when it's lined up, they can see it. Once you start getting to, circle a 10 or
or break apart or do a 10 and then or like 10 minus 7, then add on whatever. Like
that's
a lot of steps.
And with the strip diagram, mine tend to only subtract one from one number and not both. So then they make that mistake, or they'll miscount if we're doing the actual chips or the model form and the base 10 form. They'll miscount. And so they make so many more mistakes with all the other strategies, and they don't make mistakes vertically. So they're like, I would just rather do vertical.
So they avoid that frustration and go to what they know. They're successful with.
More steps. I feel like there's more can lead to more mistakes.
Yes,
and simple ones when it could just be as simple as just ones place, tens place, hundreds.
So they always opt to do the vertical. And a lot of mine too are trying to do like mental math, which is what like Eureka, they want them to do the mental math, but like they're making mistakes in their head. They're making mistakes in their head then, and then I can't see what the mistake is. So like even though like it's saying mental math, like I tell them like just do the vertical way. I need to see like your thinking, I guess.
Yeah, I tell them the same. Like, it's okay to do mental, but at least stack it so you know what you're picturing in your head. Because sometimes we think a certain number goes with a certain number in a certain place, and they have it like it's misaligned. So they're like connecting a tens and a ones, or hundreds and a tens and a one. It's not. So then they make those little minor mistakes.
I do like the drawing of the the base 10 blocks though. Like I know it's very cumbersome, but like I like that I can ask them like how many times did we have to unbundle and things like that, and like it's visually there. So like I like that part.
So I have to brag about second grade. You guys always do such a wonderful job, like internalizing the lessons. And when Eureka lessons have been observed in your classrooms, like you guys are always just so spot on. So I'd like to ask that maybe on like our next PD day here at school, would you all be interested in modeling a second grade Eureka lesson? Would you like, and maybe you don't have to like just one person do it, could you all do it? Because I think one of the things like just observing other teachers doing a Eureka lesson in the school is they feel like they have to do every single part. And you guys do a great job like you have today, like saying, hey, like use the sprint for morning work. You don't have to do it for like the actual lesson. Would you all be open to like maybe you doing the fluency of Eureka, you doing the concept development, you doing the, the application or the debrief or the exit ticket, and just model that for like the staff at our next PD. Would you all be open to that?
Yeah.
Oh, wonderful. Because I want other teachers to also just highlight and see like the great things that are happening in other grade levels. And you guys have been so exemplary in implementing Eureka with fidelity. So, so thank you guys for doing that. So just our next steps coming up. There is an end of module assessment after lesson 20. So just between now and the next time when you do give the end of module, just as a team, meet to just kind of see, are there any questions like we want to change, just kind of do that. And then at our next PLC next Thursday, just bring a copy of the end of module, and just so that we can kind of collaborate and be on the same page as a team, like with those questions and things like that. Any questions or anything just left on your mind?
No.
No, I think that was good. I think we covered everything.
Yeah.
Well, great. Well, thank you so much, second grade.
Thank you.